The Modals component can be used for dialog boxes, confirmation messages, or other content that you want to show. It can also be used as a bottom sheet to show different actions in the bottom of the screen. First, we see a modal triggered by a link, which in this case is styled as a button. We see it open right here. We can click the close button. We can click outside of the modal or use the escape button. Then we see a modal triggered by an actual button element. Looks the same, the modal itself. Then we have a modal with a fixed footer. That means that we have a lot of content in this one, but the footer will stay fixed where we have our action button for closing the modal. Finally, we have a modal appearing in the bottom of the screen as a bottom sheet, this time with different content. So this is a way to create a modal with different actions the user can take, like a list of links or buttons. All right, let's get into the code editor and start creating the first example. This is a modal with a link trigger. So we'll add a link here with the class btn and modal trigger. We'll give it the text open modal and close our link again. Then we'll add a modal down here. So we add a div tag with the class modal, and we'll give this the ID modal link. Now let's quickly go back to this anchor tag here. We'll add this ID modal link to the href attribute. So this will now be connected with the modal that we are creating. Inside of the div with the modal class, we add another div tag with the class modal content. And here we'll first create a heading using an h3 heading element, the text modal heading, and then we'll add a paragraph for our content, and I just pasted in some random text here. Then we'll create a modal footer using a div tag with the class modal footer. Inside of this, we add an anchor tag with the class btn and modal close, and we'll give it the text close. With this button, we can close our modal again. Now we need to initialize this using JavaScript. So in the button, we add a script tag here, like so. And we'll now first get all of the elements, the modal elements, by creating this variable called elements modal, and then running the query selector all on the document with the argument modal. This will find all elements with the class modal. Then we'll create the instances by adding a variable called instances modal, which is equal to m.modal.init, and we pass in the elements modal variable like so. Now let's go back to the browser, select the right tab and refresh. Here we see our link acting as the trigger. When we click it, we see the modal opening. We can close it using the close button, clicking outside of the modal, or using the escape key on the keyboard. Now let's see how we can use a button trigger instead. So we go back here and we'll copy the code for the modal only, like so, paste it in. We'll change the ID to modal button and leave all this code alone, and now create the button trigger by using the button tag with the type attribute with the value button and the class btn and modal trigger, so the same as before. This time, however, we will also add the data target attribute, and the value will be the ID of our modal, which is modal button, and then we add our text here. So in the link, we're using the href attribute with our ID with a hash in front of it, and with the button we use the data target attribute with the value of our ID without any hash in front of it. Let's save, go back and refresh. Now we can click the button as well to open up our modal. Let's see how we can create a fixed footer for our modal. So we go back here, copy and paste our recent code here, paste it in. We'll now change the value of our ID to modal fixed footer, like so. We'll also change it up here, modal fixed footer. Now we'll copy and paste this paragraph so we have 10 instead of only 1 paragraphs. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And now we only need to add a class here to the modal div element, which is modal fixed footer. As in the previous example, this is instantiated down here in the JavaScript because it looks at all elements with the class modal. So this will also get this one. We go back into the browser and refresh, open up our modal. We see a lot of content here, and we can see that the footer stays fixed in the bottom when we scroll inside of our modal. Finally, let's see how we can create a modal as a bottom sheet. So let's get back to our code editor and copy the code here for the modal with the button trigger. Paste it in. Update our value to be modal bottom sheet. And now we'll add a class to the modal div, which is bottom sheet. We'll also change the content inside of our modal. So we keep our heading but remove our paragraph. We'll create a collection inside of this using a div tag with the class collection. Then we'll add an anchor tag with the class collection item and the text collection item, and close the anchor tag again. Copy and paste this a few times and add the active class to the first one. Now let's save this, go back and refresh and open our modal. We can now see it appearing from the bottom as a bottom sheet. And we now have our collection here with various actions for the user to take. Still, we also have the modal footer with our closing button. This was all about how to use modals.